Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
This is Darren Doctorman,
This is Ashley Miller.
and we are the inglorious.
Treksperts.
And we hope you relish this as much as us because we are bringing you none other than that TRANYA swinging superstar, Clint Howard. Yes, it's
Howard.
Clint Howard. Balok himself is joining the Treksperts for a conversation about his quite eclectic career.
Sit. Be comfortable.
Yeah, Ashley and I got the chance to sit down with him recently at Chicago at Nightmare Weekend, and I think it's a fun conversation. We really tried to talk about not just Star Trek because, but a lot of the other different movies and TV shows that he did. We even talk about Seinfeld.
Yeah,
What was
we
it?
did actually. Like about how he just sort of, randomly keeps falling into these iconic
right.
roles.
He's the serial killer.
Yeah. Remember Darren when
Yeah.
Kramer goes to L.A. and they go to L.A. to
Yeah.
help Kramer, and he's the guy in the back of the car. So
I've forgotten.
yeah. You know what I went to this week that was really good? I went to a performance of Metropolis by a company called Vox Lumiere, and
Voice of the night.
it's funny because we thought it'd be like a quartet, like a string quartet or something that would play.
From
Like
Skokie, Illinois.
it was, yeah. So we went, we got our seats, and it was great because there were people decked out in costumes, and it was a whole big event. So we sit down, we take our seats. Oh my God, it was a whole rock concert. They wrote songs, and it was kind of like a Rocky Horror, but I mean, it was loud and aggressive. It was good, but it wasn't what we expected.
It sounds like my wedding.
It was very, it was really, and they had some of the songs were really good. Some, not so much, but Isaac had really wanted to see Metropolis on the big screen, and still just a spectacular movie, but with some really odd things, roads that it goes down. But it was so, and then afterwards they're selling the soundtrack. You could immediately buy the soundtrack afterwards. But a lot of wailing electric guitars, but some great vocalists, and some of the songs were really good. It was interesting. It was a lot more like the Giorgio Moroder version, I think, than
Which I like.
Queen.
Giorgio Moroder.
Birdie 4.
Well,
I think he's a
Darren,
Swedish chef. How'd that happen?
Darren, since you weren't able to join us in Chicago, do you know what kind of cuisine we went for? What in your absence?
I'm guessing Mexican.
Yeah, and you'd be
And
very
did we
happy
regret
to know.
it? That's the question.
Not regret in the sense that we had, a throw up or anything. It just wasn't good. It just wasn't good.
Yeah.
What was the name of the place? I just
Fat
went on the
Rosie's?
list. Fat Rosie's. Yeah, it was not good.
And
it
her
wasn't
five
fat
dancing
like
sisters.
it wasn't like fat like PHAT. Like wow, this is fat. It was.
Perhaps Rosie didn't eat there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Rosie needs to upgrade her. Her. It was very disappointing.
Well, I was
Yeah,
very,
it's not good.
I was very disappointed that I didn't get to go to Chicago with you guys because obviously that was my old stomping ground.
Well, we didn't go to
40
Chicago.
years
We
ago.
went to.
We were
Yeah,
we-
you went.
we were at the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Hyatt Rosemont is a horrible hotel,
Yeah.
and it reminds me of the hotel from High Anxiety, but that was in San Francisco.
Right.
But it's like with the elevator shaft in the middle, and then all the open floor plan.
Right.
So I kind of felt like Mel Brooks and High Anxiety looking out the elevators that went up, 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 up. And it's like I if they had anybody help me with my bags, they could have said, I got it. I don't got it, but nobody helped me with anything. We had to wait forever to check in, and my room was just awful.
The rooms were not great.
I was not happy.
It was like they had a sonic shower basically. Began
Just-
a
it
sonic
was
shower
like-
because you'd walk in and scream because like the shower sucked, and that was just, and then the echo would just get you clean.
Yeah. But the good news is we did sit down with Clint and
sorry.
had a lovely interview with him, and he's always happy to see see us. So that,
And of course,
that
we
was
saw
good.
him last year at Ticonderoga.
We did, and I
Yes, we
believe
did.
you are heading down to Ticonderoga again soon, aren't you?
Yes, I am too.
When are you heading down?
It's at the end of June.
Okay, so you're going to see a shit with Bill Shatner?
Did you say shit with Bill Shatner?
No, I said you're going. I said you're
Shitting with
going back.
Shatner.
You're going
Absolutely.
with Shatner.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So and then you're going back for Ticonderoga, which is in August.
That's correct.
This
That's
reminds
fantastic.
me. I don't know if you guys know this or not. This is just a random factoid. Did you know that a dog cannot distinguish between the
From China.
phoneme sh and s? You just test this on your own dog at home.
You know what's really sad? A dog can't tell the difference between William Shatner and Paul Wesley, and that's really sad.
That's right. But you could call him William Shatner and Paul Welshly, and the dog would also
Welshie. Paul Welshie.
Paul Welshie.
Paul Wesley.
Scotty.
Well,
I think before we go to Clint, we should say one other thing, which is that, man, Nightmare Weekend in Chicago actually was pretty fun, other than, you know, Fat Rosie's and the also almost
the stuff that the convention itself was great. It was the adjacent stuff, our choice of food, because the restaurants and the hotel were not open, so we ended up going. And in fact, we did listen to Darren. We went to Maritn's, right?
No, Maritn's,
for pizza instead of Illuminati's, and
or Uno.
we should have gone.
We should have asked the Illuminati to make us pizza.
The Illuminati's, yes.
Well, Uno's a chain. I mean, I used to have Uno all the time in Boston. I should have, but I like Uno. I like Uno, even if it's a chain. Should have gone there. I did order some Portillo's to the hotel.
Did you?
You know, I love my Portillo's. I did. Yeah, I had to have my Italian beef sandwich.
You got a Chicago beef sandwich. Good.
Of course.
Nice.
What else would you get for Portillo's?
Oh, they have great hot dogs too. So.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't need hot dog. If I'm gonna have hot dog, I'm gonna have a Nathan's hot dog. I'm not gonna have
And they're equitable.
Equitable.
Yeah, but Darren's going to be in Ticonderoga, and then of course we'll be back in Oklahoma City, May 23rd to 25th, and July 11th to 13th we'll be making our appearance in New Orleans. A lot of great Star Trek guests at Galaxycon, so check that out at galaxycon.com.
I'm looking forward to that so much.
Oh my God, yes. Oh, the eating we're gonna do, boys.
Oh, we'll have stories. So those of you who listen to the podcast for the
Stories.
restaurant stories are going to really enjoy it. Those who hate the restaurant stories, not so much.
Yeah, it will not be your favorite episodes.
Darren's going to be in Raleigh, July 24th to 27th.
Yeah.
Ashley is going to be in San Jose, August 15th to 17th. We're all going to reunite, feels so good, September 12th to the 14th at Des Moines for another great GalaxyCon. And then we'll be in St. Louis, October 10th to the 12th. You've been asking for us to expand the cities we come to. Well, we're delivering. So
That's
if
right.
you're
We
not
just keep expanding.
if you're not in New York, then you're in luck, because there are a lot of other great cities we're coming to. So, but we are not going to New York Comic Con because they haven't asked us, and
and like
they
that,
had to make
we need to be invited in.
We need to be
That's right.
invited.
Like
It's like
vampires.
sinners.
It's
Yeah,
like sinners,
vampires.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we play a lot of music. And then we go places. And
That's right. We're all blues
need to be
guitarists,
invited.
as it turns out, and we've got pretty great singing voices.
We play the theremin.
Yeah, we do. We have a guy who does it, but it's
the
us.
guy knows a guy.
Guy knows a guy.
Yeah. Or we know Craig Huxley, who plays the
blaster beam.
The blaster beam. Bow. Yeah. Bow. The sound of V'ger. Okay.
Captain, there's a
Yeah,
funky
V'ger.
bass line off the starboard bow.
If V'ger could talk, he would sound like a blaster beam.
Wow.
Bow. Let's just do it for an entire episode. The sounds of V'ger. Listen to the
We
Treksperts.
interview V'ger.
Oh my God, that
Yeah.
would be so good.
Yeah, V'ger, you happy to be on the show? Bow.
Wow.
Will you come back? Bow. Bow. Thank you, V'ger. It's a pleasure having you.
Wow.
We finally found somebody that Darren can't do their voice. Oh my God. Well, I don't know, but we're excited about a lot of these conventions we're going to. This is gonna be great. I'm so excited that you're going up to Ticonderoga again, and of course James Cawley will be joining us in Vegas, August 7th to the 10th. That's gonna be great to have James there. Spread the gospel of the Star Trek set tour.
Absolutely.
I had a great conversation with James a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
What a great guy. Yeah, he was with David Gerald, and they had some questions about some documents that David had turned over.
Yes.
So they
yes.
called to
Documents.
ask me.
Recently unearthed documents that are.
Yeah. from Next Generation, early on Next Generation, and they couldn't figure some stuff out, so I helped them decode. It.
I trust you mean Mr. Spock's ability to decode. I'm not sure.
I turned it over to Zahn.
Yeah.
Because I want a Vulcan there. Speaking of which, we're going to have Zahn in Vegas, Lawrence Luckenbill.
But not
No,
Stone.
not Lawrence Luckenbill.
Lawrence Luckenbill is
David,
not
Zahn.
David, I am
Goodfellow.
not. He wrote a book called I Am Not Zahn. I know David
That's
Cottrell.
hilarious.
Zahn and off.
That's what the panel should be. I Am Not Zahn by David
That's
Cottrell.
hilarious. We got to call.
Coming on stage.
We should
David
actually do that
Cottrell.
book, just to offer that book for him to autograph. Or maybe you could do the book cover.
I'll make up a book cover.
Oh, that's so funny. He'll love that.
Yeah.
And the
He's a
best
nice
part is
guy.
he is literally
Do it
not
exactly
Zahn.
like
And
Nimoy's
yeah.
book.
Yeah, and you know who we just added? The guy, we just added. We're so excited. John Schuck.
That's outrageous.
There could be no peace as long as the Treksperts live.
Vulcans are well known as the intellectual puppets of the Federation.
I love that phrase, intellectual puppets.
Yeah,
Me
that's
too.
a good
That's going to be my band name.
intellectual puppets. Yeah, that's great because we know Ashley has Smell It Nancy. You
Yep.
have intellectual puppets, and mine is Edith Keeler Must Die.
Wow, that's hilarious.
So we it's like when they asked George in Seinfeld what his porn name is, Buck Naked. Well, we got our band names.
That's right.
So we got our Star Trek band names.
That's hilarious. We
Yeah.
should go to CLINT HOWARD right now.
Yeah, let's go to Clint because
Let's
Clint
do
has a
that.
lot to say, and we only have 2 minutes left, so
2
you better pray
minutes left.
to whatever God you believe in because Clint's coming up after these brief commercial messages, and we'll be back with a few closing thoughts. We're so thrilled to once again be joined by Clint Howard.
Welcome. Sit, be comfortable.
That was actually pretty good.
Thank you.
Sit. Be comfortable.
See, now you could have dubbed yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that version of that scene. So, Clint, I want to ask you, your dad was an actor, your mom was an actor, you come from an acting family. Was there ever a time in which they wanted to discourage you from going into the family business? Because obviously, it's a rough business, as we all know. Or was it just encouragement the whole time?
No, Mark, the way you framed that, no, they didn't discourage me at all. My dad, mom, they were both very positive people. My dad, Rance Howard, and my mom, Jean Howard, they were lifers in the business, and they loved the business. But they were aware that it was tricky to go from being an adolescent into the adult acting world, and I was always given plenty of options and plenty of opportunities to say, no, I got other things to do. Like when I was in high school, I turned work down because, I played on the high school baseball team and Jiminy Christmas, there just was other things going on. I did work a few times each of those years, but no, I was preparing for the long haul. I don't. When I went to college and studied journalism for a brief period of time, and I sort of had a gift for writing, still do to a degree. I certainly would, I thought about it, but listen, I could, honest to God, I could make more money as an actor than I could being a stringer for a newspaper back in the early 80s. So it wasn't really a question to me.
So when you were sometimes turning down some of the roles when you were an adolescent, when you were a kid, was there anything that turned into something that you were like, oh God, I wish that I had said yes to that?
And no, as an adolescent, no, I didn't look back. First of all, I sort of took myself out of the market, so to speak. I would just, I told my agent, listen, I'm playing baseball. I'm on a high school baseball team. I really don't want to mess with stuff right now. There were certainly jobs that I auditioned for and didn't get, and it irritated me, Here's an anecdotal thing that just popped into my head the other day. I auditioned for the role that Randy Quaid played in The Last Picture Show.
Wow.
Yeah, I was young. He's a couple of years older than me, and they went with the old gangly guy instead of the, I would have been. I think I was probably only 11 or 12 years old at the time. But, you know, I certainly have had plenty of opportunities to compete auditioning and not get the job. And that's really a pisser. I'll tell you, when you commit, you know, when you commit to learning the material and competing for the role, and then they say thanks but no thanks, there's a lot of muttering that goes on that drive home, you know. Now, my mom, Jean Frances Howard, she was the ultimate optimist. And she would say that the auditioning is the real work and the job is just the gravy. And I didn't quite share my mom's rosy outlook on that.
Do you share it now?
No, I'm very competitive. I'm very competitive in almost anything I do. When push comes to shove, if there's 5 or 6 people trying, I try to win at Monopoly, for crying out loud.
That'll be the next panel, actually.
Another movie that I competed for, got pretty much to the finals, and didn't get the role, was a movie that Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton were in called Twister. And Philip Seymour Hoffman was the young kid that got the job. And listen, he was a great actor. Philip was a wonderful dude. And he did a great job in that movie. But, you know, here I was watching the movie in the theater going, God, I could have played that part. So anyway.
Well, I'm done with Peter Bogdanovich and Jan de Bont now. Now that we know that they rejected you. You know, it's interesting because you mentioned Twister, but you so often have played like a scientist or a doctor, or what do you think your appeal is in those kind of roles that you not pigeonholed, but it's something that you've often been cast as?
Well, I've done it famously in a few, like, you know, The Wraith. I played this, you know, really kind of weird, nerdy character, you know, Rughead, who had an eraser head haircut, you know. And, you know, I guess I can play that guy. And then later on in my life, I've done the whole mission control thing, and there was another one. Oh, I was in a short-lived TV series called Space Rangers, and I played the ultimate nerdy little scientist named Dr. Mimmer. And it was fun to do. Well, I think one either advantage or one thing that I think producers understood and realized is I could handle all that gobbledygook. Techno-babble doesn't bother me, you know. I just, if I have any vague idea what the word is and I can pronounce it, I'll say it with conviction. In fact, the one job that I ever did in Chicago was backdraft. And I played an autopsy technician named Rico. And I got to do a scene. It was one of the highlights of my career. I got to spend the day acting with Robert De Niro. And Bob is a great guy. He's really a wonderful actor. And, you know, after about 10 or 15 minutes, he starts out really slow. He warms up. And I was told this, that he's a slow starter. But you just prepare to do a lot of takes. And by the 7th or 8th take, it was just going so good. It was going so good. And I played a guy that had to say things like trictichloride, you know, and a lot of other kind of techno-babble that an autopsy technician would have. They were discussing the chemicals that were embedded in this burn victim's body. But let me tell you one story about De Niro. And my wife, Kat, has heard this before. And it really is. It's my foot in my mouth in the ultimate way. My brother Ron directed Backdraft, and it was a big deal to me to get to work with De Niro, and it was a big movie. Ron had graduated up to kind of the next level of movie making, and he entrusted me to play this part. I went in there, I was all excited, and like I said, it started out kind of slow, and then De Niro starts cooking, and just the acting, the back and forth is just special. And on about 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm feeling really good. And I don't know if anybody knows what craft service is, but craft service is the food that somebody prepares so the actors and the crew members can kind of nibble as they go throughout the day. And on a big movie, craft service can be pretty elaborate. And a lot of times craft service people, they take pride in offering special dishes and things. And so I'm feeling great, and I'm standing there talking to my brother, and we're kind of taking a break in the filming, And this woman who was the craft service lady, she's walking around with a tray of broccoli pizza. And she offers some to Ron and offers some to me. And I look at it and I go, who the fuck would want broccoli pizza? And Ron had to whisper in my ear, that's Bob's favorite food. And the blood rushes out of my face, and I realize that Bob is from me to Mark. My back was turned, and he didn't like make I knew he heard me because I said it that loud. So anyway, Clint puts his foot in his mouth in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. I haven't put my foot in my mouth my whole life.
So how do you're facing down this scene with Robert De Niro, and you have to spout technobabble at him. How do you prep the technobabble?
Just learn it, get comfortable with it, rehearse. One thing that my dad, Rance Howard, what he taught me is preparation, preparation, preparation. Like my scene in Star Trek, that had to have been 4, 5, or 6 hours of rehearsing over a 2 or 3 day period. It was all about being prepared. When Ron and I were little kids acting, we were always the most prepared kids on the show. And I've just taken that into my adult world. Nothing beats knowing what the hell you're doing. So if you have a grasp of it, they're just words. Trictichlorate. First you spell it out, and then you do the little slashes through where anyway, it's not that difficult. And Space Rangers was huge for that, because remember, it was about a bunch of grizzly kind of space Marines, and I was the one non-grizzly guy, and my character always came in just spouting all sorts of just techno-babble. And the only fortunate thing about it is I was probably the 4th or 5th banana in the show, so I didn't have a lot to do. I would usually work 1 or 2 days a week, and I would have one scene. Well, learning one scene a week is pretty easy,
And it's interesting because that show, Pendentium, if I recall, did it coming off of a bunch of big movies and TV shows. And there were high expectations, but the problem is it was on CBS, which was probably the worst channel you could put sort of a swashbuckling sci-fi show on.
And here's the thing about science fiction. Wildly popular for a relatively small niche. And back in those days, back in the 80s and the 90s, television was still aiming at a pretty big target. So a little niche show that might draw fans. Listen, Star Trek didn't make it for very long. There hasn't been a lot of science fiction shows that have had a lot of traction. Star Trek is a unique animal because of its staying power over the decades. But listen, we had high expectations. John Watson, Pendentium, and
The third, it was Trilogy Entertainment.
Trilogy
Who
Entertainment.
was the third?
Somebody
should
can
know.
Google it.
It was Penn, John, and
That other guy was no, wait, it wasn't Mark, was it? No, because he wasn't.
No, I don't know.
Mark Stern worked for them,
Yeah.
but he wasn't the third guy. He was a development exec.
Okay, this is getting anecdotal here for a moment. You know who worked for Pendentium on Space Rangers? Jay Roach.
Oh, that's
Wow.
right.
Okay.
The guy that directed all the Austin Powers movies. And Jay was just a very studious guy. He looked like a writing nerd. He didn't look like a guy that knew how to do a joke.
And you played a main mission controller in that as well.
All
Two of
three.
them. All right.
All three. I played Johnson. And in the second Austin Powers, I was in the absolutely hilarious scene about, hey, Johnson, it looks like a giant wang. The one-eyed monster. Step right up and do the one-eyed monster. And listen, you got to give Mike Myers credit. Mike Myers, his sense of humor, his style, his moxie for friggin' just throwing it on the wall. And the thing about those Austin Powers pictures, for my money, is that style gets so infectious that you just start laughing because you're laughing. You're laughing because you're laughing. And it also is very brilliant. Mindy Sterling, you know, and of course Vern, you know. Anyway, you know, hey, I've been very blessed. I've worked a long time, but I've gotten to be a part of some pretty cool projects.
You have, and you worked with Adam Sandler on a bunch of projects, and Little Nicky and Waterboy.
Waterboy, Little Nicky, and a couple others. Actually, I may have gotten a little bit on his naughty list back in 19...
Did you talk about his pizza? Was that the problem?
No, I'll tell you what I did. You know, I had to have my hips replaced. And my first hip, and I was in a lot of agony. It wasn't an accident or anything. I just wore the thing down. And I was scheduled to work on a movie that he was producing. He wasn't in it. He was producing. And I got booked for a slot in the operating room. And I told the guys, I gotta take this. I gotta get my hip fixed. This guy's a really good surgeon, and I gotta get my hip fixed, and I can't be in your movie. And so, listen, it's actor's life. I turned the job down, and it was a while before I worked again for Adam. But Adam's a great dude. Adam, you know, Henry Winkler is probably the nicest guy in show business of all time. But I'll tell you what, Adam is not too far behind. Adam is a real Mitch.
I got to ask you, you mentioned earlier that De Niro would be 6 or 7 takes to warm up.
Oh, or
now,
more.
Do you have a preference? Obviously, there's people like Brando who are like the method actors. There are people like Shatner who, if you do more than 2 takes, he's pissed, right? There's and you know, and then you mentioned De Niro. Do you have a type of actor that you prefer to work with? And you know, what's your approach to the material?
I like good ones. I like good actors. I like actors that don't suck the oxygen out of the room. People that know how to concentrate, but you know, it doesn't look like that. You know, the world's on fire. I've worked with a lot of really good actors. I've worked with actors that I was told weren't going to be very good to me. I had an opportunity many years ago to work with Sylvester Stallone, and this was in Tango and Cash. And the scouting report for that, because when you're getting to work with a guy like Stallone, you kind of you call around, you find out, and the word on the street was he was not a good man to work with, that he was kind of a diva or a divo or whatever you would call it.
Yeah, that's his reputation.
And yet, when I worked with him, also another great thing about working on Tango and Cash, that day on the Warner Brothers lot, I met Larry King.
Well,
And I was a big late night talk show guy. And when I saw Larry King there, that like made my day. I could sit and talk to Larry King. But anyway, when we started doing those scenes together, Stallone was giving, he was focused, he did his job, he was relaxed. So, listen, that's also good. I don't like guys that take it way too seriously. I haven't worked with too many guys that take it way too seriously, but there's just, I don't know, guys, listen, we all focus, we concentrate, we do our job, and then we let it go. Because we're on to the next friggin' thing. Either the next scene or the next job, and it's not that I don't care, but it's just, to a degree, I hold my work kind of lightly in my hand when I'm going good.
So you're saying you're not a method actor?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what method acting really is. I mean, I do drop into the character, or I actually have another little take on it. Instead of me becoming the character, I say the character becomes me. Because I've realized over time that I'm a pretty interesting guy. And they're hiring Clint Howard. Not Clint Howard to become somebody else, but Clint Howard because he's an interesting guy. And what if this guy that was in the jail acting nutty was Clint Howard? And I don't know, in a way I just kind of turned that on my ear. But again, I don't hold it too tightly. I keep it pretty light.
But Gentle Ben was a method actor. He was always in character.
Method because he wanted food.
You know, one of the other things you are is a scene stealer, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, in a great way. You know, I think about so many of the roles you've done, and, you know, even something like Arrested Development. You know, you're in the one episode, and it's so memorable, you know, you and the tree. Obviously, Star Trek. Everyone remembers Balok, you know. It's like you parodied it in the William Shatner roast, where you came back 20 years later or 30 years later.
Well, thank you, Mark. I mean, Jesus, you know, that it's good. Thank you. I try to do good work, and I don't try to chew on the scenery too much. Although every once in a while, I'll see my work, and I'll go, God, Clint, why was I trying so hard? Let it go. You know, I'm sometimes I'm not my own best audience, but you know, stealing a scene, like in Arrested Development with Portia de Rossi. That's the actress's name?
Yeah, Portia de Rossi.
Yeah. I swear to God, it was one of those, literally, I'm on the set for maybe 2 hours. That's all. You know, TV works really fast, and they're moving, and they're shooting over here, and then they're shooting over here, and then all of a sudden, they have me in wardrobe, and they call me to the set, and it was up in a treehouse. And they literally had a cherry picker that took us up into the treehouse. And I was the first in the treehouse. And then she came up, and I swear to God, maybe she didn't like heights, but the minute she got up in that treehouse, she wanted to get down. She couldn't. We couldn't finish that scene fast enough for her. She was just interested. I don't know. She had somewhere to go or something to do. She was looking over the thing, and I'm thinking, God, you know, we're going to be done in 20 minutes anyway. Why not just relax and enjoy it?
Well, we are at Nightmare Weekend, so we would be remiss if we didn't talk about your iconic role in Ice Cream Man. Obviously.
Hey, thank you. Guys,
Oh,
hold
no.
on. Here we go. Wait for it. It's coming very, very soon. I'm gonna teach all you people what it takes for a man to start putting body parts in ice cream. Because this movie's going to be about a dude that gets hit on and picked on and kicked and stomped to the point where he says, fuck it. And we love it. My wife, Kat, and I, and Norman Apstein are the producers, and we're in pre-production now. In fact, at our table, a dear friend of ours, her stage name is Barbarella. She's an international rap star. Barbarella, she's here. She's enjoying the convention, and she's going to be in the movie. There's a wonderful part for Danny Trejo, and he's expressed interest that he wants to be in it. And this is something that I've certainly cleared it with him, but I'm going to be directing the movie, or at least co-directing the movie. And I was in my brother's first directing effort, and he's always told me that when I direct my first movie, he's going to be in it. And there is a great role for my brother. And it's I don't want to give away too many secrets. You don't see him all that much, but when you see him, it's going to be very impactful. So, you know, we have Sean Kanan from Bold and the Beautiful and from Cobra Kai. He's going to be in it, and it's pretty excited about it. And listen, I will gladly talk about it at the table more, babe. Oh, and also too, that's right, babe. My niece, Bryce Dallas Howard, has a sister. She's got two sisters actually. One of them is in the business, and one of them isn't. But she's got a niece, and her name is Paige Howard. What did I say? Oh yeah, no, she's my niece. Paige is my niece. She's Bryce's sister. She's a dynamic personality and a lovely person, and she's a really good actress. And she's done a little bit of acting, but she would like to do more. And we're booking her to play. She's playing a detective, I mean, as you remember, the Ice Cream Man, ultimately he starts committing crimes. So there are a couple of bumbling detectives that are sort of following around, going, why is this guy? Why is his head in a block of ice? What's the crime here? Why, you know? So anyway, Paige is playing one of those bumbling detectives, and she's got great comedic timing, and she's going to be wonderful. So, and there's a lot of other surprises too. So, look forward. We're going to shoot this year. Look forward to probably, most likely, the first part of 2026. I mean, it may get rushed out. Some of it has to do with the distributor, you know. But anyway, thank you for the applause. Yeehaw!
And Ben and Jerry's is coming on board as product placement.
Well, you know, we're hunting for all sorts of product placement. The only trouble is when you start talking about body parts and ice cream, it does make some retailers a little squeamish. So I don't know. We're hunting at all angles, and there's also. Can I say this about Rispado? Well, my partner over here. Well, the Ice Cream Man has a nemesis. In the first half of the movie, he's got this nemesis, a competitor, and he's the Rispado Man. He's the guy, he's the old Mexican guy pushing the cart, selling the shaved ice. So we're looking to do some commercial tie-ins with Rispado and syrups and stuff like that.
Well, since we're at a horror convention, we mentioned Ice Cream Man. We have to mention about your, I guess, fruitful collaboration with Mr. Uwe Boll.
Yes,
Maybe
Uwe.
we could talk a little bit about Uwe. Oh,
Uwe fan.
that.
Uwe fan out in the
Hey,
audience.
you know, granted, Uwe's made some movies that are really, you know, a challenge to watch. However, I admire him as a filmmaker. He's a great what? You know,
Raconteur.
I'm an employee. He's an employer. He hires me. I've worked in 6 or 7 Uwe Boll movies. He's always been very fair, very honest. I was in Blubberella, and I was in Blood Rain Third Reich, and I was in House of the Dead, which you produced. I was in Backwoods.
Blood Rain 3 or
Yeah, Blood Rain Third Reich. Yeah, the Nazis, you know. Uwe made me jump the shark when he started putting vampires and Nazis together, although it actually sounds like a pretty good title. But I have a profound respect for Uwe. I really do, you know. So I wish him well. I saw on the internet that he's done a couple of things recently. He's unretired.
He's unretired. He opened a restaurant in Vancouver. Now he's gone back to directing. Of course, we have to call him Dr. Uwe Boll,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I'll tell you one little story about Uwe, and this isn't really, you know, he just wants to get the movie in the can. You know, he's always been the producer and the director on his movies. And, you know, normally on a movie set, there's an argument that happens between the producer and the director. The director wants to have a creative vision, and he wants to stretch the dollar, and he wants to get as much as he can get, and he's always tugging on the producer, and the producer is trying to hold the line. Well, that conversation between the producer and the director has already happened in Uwe's head, and the producer has won. So when push comes to shove, it's cut, Prince. Let's go have dinner.
Moving on, put the zombie at the fort and shoot it.
Moving on, we kill these zombies and we have lunch.
Well, I know we only have a few minutes, so let's do some questions. If you want to line up over here at the microphone and ask Clint some questions about your favorite Clint Howard movies. And
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Also, cue on up. Also, you know, Terrifier. Terrifier 3 I was in, and that was a great experience, and those guys are just minches. Those guys are really, really good people. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. Damien, Phil Falcone, David Howard Thornton. So if you ever get a chance to support them, just because they're good people. But anyway, go ahead, sir.
Hi. I was going to ask about Terrifier, but since you already spoke about that, I'm a huge Rod Serling Night Gallery fan, the boy who predicted earthquakes. Do you have any stories about that? Or Roo from Winnie the Pooh. I grew up on those.
Boy, that's the spectrum.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
From a kid that predicts the end of it all to
Roo.
a Disney kangaroo, animated kangaroo.
Who also predicts the end of it all.
Yeah.
Death
No,
is coming to the.
I'll tell you what. Here's the thing about I did 2 movies. I did Winnie the Pooh and the Blustery Day, and I did Jungle Book. And I did get to meet Walt Disney on the Jungle Book, and it was a wonderful experience. I was a Disney baby, and when he stepped into the recording studio and waved at me and he said, "You're doing a fine job, Clint," it was one of those moments I'll never forget it. And it's, you know, the fact that I had that with him was wonderful. And the Night Gallery, heady stuff. And I knew what I was. I knew what I was doing. I knew what this character Herbie Bittman was saying. Directed by a guy named John Badham, and it was written by Rod Serling. And so, you know, it was. I feel like the material holds up if you get a chance to ever see it again. It holds up really well. Now and I'm seeing a wrestling ring over here. Here's my story about Night Gallery. As much as it's about a boy that is predicting the end of the world, what really enamored me more than any of that was the fact that we filmed at KCOP Channel 13 in Los Angeles. It was an independent channel that had their own sound stages. And we filmed on one sound stage, and on the other sound stage, they were practicing and rehearsing for Wednesday Night Wrestling. So Dad and I and my brother are always big wrestling guys, and the idea that during a break in the filming we could go over and watch these dudes working out their wrestling routines. And they're rehearsing like it's a stage fight. You know, they're getting in the ring and loosening up and then throwing each other and practicing certain kicks. So my memory of Night Gallery was I got to also be inside the ropes in pro wrestling. Cool. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Wow.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm so happy to see you. I discovered a really awesome band today, Clint Howard and the Kempsters.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to put that on a vinyl record?
Vinyl? Well, possibly. You know what, babe? And I'm just realizing that we made a fumble. We didn't pack any Kempster CDs.
Oh,
I do have Kempster CDs.
thousands?
You can see it on YouTube. There's 2.
I watched.
Yeah. Left-handed
Big
boy.
fan.
Left-handed boy in
It
a
was
right-handed
really
world.
awesome.
Thank you very much. Well, I went through that stage. I was in my early 20s, and me and my best friend Scott Green, we started up a garage band, and we got a guy named Sabino Flores to play lead guitar, and Jay Dean to play the bass, and Tony Rodriguez, and a guy named Mike Bauer, Spooner Bauer, to play the drums. And for a couple of years, we were playing around LA, having a blast. So
Are there any T-shirts left?
I don't know. There might be. Listen, come to the table and talk to Kat,
Okay.
and we'll hook you up.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
God, the Kempsters. No brains at all.
Hello. I was wondering, since your guest appearance on Seinfeld, does anyone ever walk up to you and say, Ann Landers sucks?
Oh, are you kidding me? All the time.
Even Ann Landers.
What a night. Talk about a day. Talk about ringing the bell in a one-day cameo or just a one-day scene. And it was the environment. Jerry and George were absolutely just nails. They were just so good to work with. And Tom, the director, he was solid. I didn't meet Larry David. Was it? Yeah, Tom. Tom directed the
Tom
episode.
Trinonis, yeah.
Yeah. And it was just a beautiful day in the San Fernando Valley, and I got hired to play this nutty character. And they obviously liked me. I auditioned and I got the job. And I went in, and here's the thing about Ann Landers Sucks, is we were shooting like one camera. We were, they put they put a camera in the front seat of the squad car, and it was just me and George and Jerry were in the back, right? And we're filming, and the scene's going along, and it's going good, and we could tell there were laughs. And then when the last moment in that scene is that joke, and as that's not the line in the script. It was a line about Ann Landers, but it wasn't Ann Landers sucks. And what happened was, I was going along as an actor, and all of a sudden I had a brain freeze. And, I read it in Ann Landers. Ann Landers sucks! And it was because I didn't know the fucking line. And then, okay, the car pulls over, cut, the director's not there because Jerry's kind of directing from inside. And I say to Jerry, I go, Jerry, I'm sorry, we can go around real quick one more time. I'll get that line right. And he had stood up. He had stood up out of the car, and he bit down in the window looking at me, and he goes, are you crazy? Because he knew how well it rang. He knew and it is. I mean, I see it once in a while. Ann Landers sucks. Anyway, that's, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, one thing I always wanted to know, like in Ice Cream Man, when you had those severed police officers' heads on those ice cream scoops, were the scoops actually making them talk, or did you use some kind of props or visual effects?
Well, the scoopers on paper were supposed to make the mouths move.
Yeah.
Mark Garbarino was the effects guy that designed it, but they didn't work real well.
Oh.
So we had to sort of kind of fake it and mimic it. And the one thing about that, and I'm actually pretty proud of it, that was like almost all improv. Norman, the director, wanted me to just do this puppet show with these kids. And of course, it's really creepy. I got these two bloody heads on these ice cream scoopers. And I just started doing a kind of a show for the kids, and it worked out really well. Something I'm real proud of.
All right. Okay, it's all I want.
Cool, man.
Mr. Howard, pleasure.
Sure.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
You hear about stuff, happening on set all the time during films, like whether it be a horrible accident or an epic meltdown from a director or an actor. You've been to so many movies. What was the craziest thing you've ever seen on set?
Wow.
That you can talk about.
No, well, like an epic meltdown.
Or like, something exploded or didn't go right?
Well, I've been around a lot of explosions that either were a little too hot, or they didn't explode, or, that's usually kind of frustrating. I'll tell you something that happened to me, and it was really scary, and very personal. I was in a little movie called Digital Man. That I'm sure you can get it on VHS. I don't know whether you can get it on any other platform. And I played a character that turned out to be a robot. I mean, that was kind of what the premise of the movie was, is there's a lot more robots out there than you think.
Spoiler alert.
And yeah, well, don't worry. You're not missing much. But anyway, I played this robot, and of course, we were in sort of a modern, not an airplane, but kind of a hovercraft thing that was flying around, and I was the captain. And there was somebody in the back, ends up kind of commandeering the airplane or the aircraft, and ends up shooting me. And it's a surprise. Instead of blood, there's sparks. And then all of a sudden I fall back, and then sparks are shooting out of my chest. And it's like, oh, he's a robot. Which is fine. I'll play anything as long as I have my social security number I can give them, and they're going to give me a paycheck. I'll play a trained monkey for that, if somebody gives me a paycheck. But anyway, we did the thing, and they rigged up. They call them squibs, but this wasn't blood. This was sparks. So the sparks hit, right? That's fine. And then I fall back. And the sparks, and I fall back, and I'm trying to be cool. I was in my probably early 30s, and I fall back on the ground, and I want to be cool, and I want to have my eyes open. And these sparks are shooting up out of my chest. And one of the sparks lands and hits me in the eyelid. I had a legitimate burn in my eyelid. And I got pissed off. Because first of all, it could have been my eye. You know, and it was because these guys were trying to shoot a little low-budget movie, and it was 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and we'd been working all day, and there obviously wasn't safety precautions. So, you know, in that case, you know, safeties. I've never been on the set where anybody's gotten gravely injured. There was somebody killed in the Wraith, but it wasn't when I was working. And then there was somebody that got killed on the Rocketeer, and I was not working the day that it was a stuntman, and he was the Rocketeer, and the jetpack the kid was supposed to be, you know, zooming across the ground 6 inches off the ground with the rocket. The Rocketeer but he wasn't getting airborne, and so it was a thing with the guy on wires. So they rigged him up, and they pulled him too fast, and they pulled him over the edge of the LA Observatory.
Oh man!
Went down like, I don't know, 40 or 50 feet and died. So, you know, industrial accidents, it happens. Thank you. Do we have?
Okay, let's try and get through these last two questions because we're almost out of time.
These are good questions too, guys.
They are, aren't they? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Frankie. Thank you for coming. My question is, while filming Ice Cream Man, while you were filming, did you understand the film and how it was going to turn out in the end?
Sort of. Yeah. We knew, you know, our tongues were firmly planted in our cheeks. It was a kid's horror movie. You know, I didn't quite know where all the laughs were going to land, but we knew there was going to be laughs. And this character, you know, he was pretty simplistically written. He was just a crazy guy with a gravelly voice. Literally, crazy guy with a gravelly voice. And the trick on the Ice Cream Man is every day for the 4 or 5 weeks that we were filming, I would drive to work screaming. I would scream at the top of my lungs. This was after the Kimsters, so I had done rock and roll. I knew how to scream and make my voice hoarse. So I would scream, and then I'd show up to work, and my voice would be kind of like that. And I took it to another level. But, and I'm, you know, and another Ice Cream Man is going to have a similar kind of trademark gravelly voice. I haven't quite landed on it, and probably if I did land on it, I wouldn't share it with you guys right now. But anyway, so that, you know, that's the Ice Cream Man stories.
Oh, for sure. Thank you, and I loved you in the movie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this will be the last question, but stick around after he asks his question, because as is tradition at Nightmare Weekend and Galaxycon, there will be a group selfie afterwards. So stick around for that. But first, you have the honor of the last question of the day. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, CLINT HOWARD. Loved you in all your films. You're a great actor, staggering filmography. How did you like making Austin Powers and Backdraft back in the day?
Great experiences. Austin Powers, you know, was very fun. Although, listen, you know, those scenes were shot really quick.
Yeah.
I was probably only on the set for the first Austin Powers, you know, for a couple hours, and for 2 or 3 hours on the second one, and probably just for an hour or two on the third one. It all happens really fast. And like when the first Austin Powers, I didn't have an opportunity to meet Mike Myers.
Right.
He was there, but he was off filming something else on the other side of the soundstage, and I didn't feel bad, but he didn't come over and say hi. He introduced himself to me later and stuff, but it was just, you know, kind of show business. It's kind of how you do it, you know, and so that was, you know, and again, I don't know, you may not have been here for, Backdraft was great because I got to work with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
And De Niro, you know, I don't believe I've worked with a better actor. I've worked with some great actors, and I don't, you know, but I just think that day that I had on the set with him was awesome. And I'll tell you now, a lot of times people ask me that question, you know, who was your favorite actor to work with? And I would say that Bob was, as a man. A lot of great guys. There's a lot of great actors, great dudes, you know. I just felt like it was really percolating with De Niro. But also, on the women's side, I'll tell you, that Kate Blanchett, excuse me, Kate Blanchett. When I got on the set, I felt like I was in the presence of a superior actor. She knew the process. She concentrated. She had a baby that was like 7 or 8 months old at base camp, and she didn't lose. She wasn't distracted. She put her acting shoes on. We worked all day. We worked hard all day, and I was just really impressed with her. And another actress that I was really impressed with was Nicole Kidman. I got to work with her on Far and Away, and I didn't. Maybe it was a little bit of a surprise, but I just felt like, my goodness, this beautiful actress can friggin' bring it. So those are that's my top actors and actresses story.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you.
And thank you, Clint. This was great
Thank
as
you.
always. So
And-
great talking to you.
Okay, we're done. We're done drinking the TRANYA. We're saying goodbye to Anthony Call and Clint Howard as they sail off into the first Federation.
Yeah.
Do you think there was a second Federation?
No.
No.
Okay.
I think they drank too much TRANYA. They had a couple of adventures
They
that
didn't care anymore.
no. Somebody just needs. You know what? If anybody ever actually has written a Star Trek novel
I
about
think
that,
someone did.
oh God.
I think someone. We'd have to ask Rob.
Yeah, we have to. We got to call Rob one of these days on the show. We haven't had him since the holiday specials. His birthday's coming up. Maybe next week we'll call Rob and just
On his
check
71st birthday.
check in on him. Yeah, well, he's almost having second last day.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost.
Second last day.
Second last day.
Yeah.
Carousel goes really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, to think we made a
Carousel of
movie.
no progress.
I mean, Mark was worried about turning 30.
Yeah.
It's like
We laughed. We laughed.
the sequel is, I'm worried about joining AARP, Rob.
Yeah.
They got great discounts, but I don't know if I can do it.
I know, but they don't have discounts on XO6, man. Anyway, okay. Well, listen, thanks for joining us. Seriously, we really hope we met some nice people in Chicago. We hope some of you will join us at some of these upcoming appearances. If you have a chance and can go to Ticonderoga, you absolutely should avail yourself of the opportunity. It's amazing, and you can't have a better tour guide than Darren Docterman. Of course, Oklahoma City is a great place to come visit. The convention last year was great, except for that one steak place, and New Orleans it's just a ton of Star Trek guests. It's going to be great. We're really excited about helping Galaxycon usher in a new convention in New Orleans.
Indeed.
And then, look, Star Trek Las Vegas is going to be a blast. Creation just announced our whole schedule on the website, creationent.com. So if you want to see what we're up to, and it's quite a bit, you want to check that out and come on down to Vegas and the Rio. You won't regret it. We're putting on 4 days of great Star Trek and Star Trek adjacent content, including 50th anniversary tribute to Space 1999 with Barbara Bain and Nick Tate.
That's just awesome.
It's so great. It's so great. And we're going to have the world famous Treksperts costume exhibit as well.
That's right. Not a contest. It's an
Not a contest. The contest. Speaking of Seinfeld episodes, it'll be like the Star Trek costume contest. Okay. Oh my God. Well, anyway, look, a pleasure as always. And of course, we thank you, our loyal listeners, for continuing to indulge in this frivolous activity we do week after week.
And to our disloyal listeners, we know you're out there.
Yeah, to your disloyal listeners, your agonizer, please. Inglorious Treksperts, Treksperts Briefing Room, Tech 78 are part of the Treksperts Podcast Network, copyright 2025 by Treksperts Plus. Executive producers are Mark A. Altman, Darren Docterman, and Ashley Edward Miller. The show is produced by Peter Holmstrom, Brian Mix. Original music by Joe Kramer. Video editing by Brian Mix. Sound mixing by Mark Rivera. You can open hailing frequencies by emailing us at trekspertsplus@gmail.com or find us on all major social channels, including Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Twitter, and now at BluSky. Nothing but BluSky at Inglorious Trek or Inglorious Treksperts. You can also subscribe to us on Spotify or at trekspertsplus.com and follow us now on YouTube. Thank you, Brian Mix. Those are some really terrific video episodes. You can also watch those on Spotify. And please follow and rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you don't miss an episode. You don't want to miss episodes like this.
For sure.
So until next week, on behalf of the Treksperts, Ashley Edward Miller, Darren Docterman, myself, Mark A. Altman, keep on trekking. And gloriously, of course.